Welcome to the Non-Standard Podcast. I'm your host, Manny Lampson. If this is your first time listening or your 50th time listening, this is what to expect on this episode. We dive into the concepts of developing your leadership toolbox. Why do you need this? You need this in any situation to help manage, lead, and control, and ultimately win. How do you do that? You can't use the same form of leadership in everything you do. So every episode, we dive into my leadership philosophy. We dive into the story and the background of the person we're talking to. And we also dive into some leadership traits I have accrued throughout the years. And then we also follow it up with a book review at the end. So you're getting a wide range of leadership topics and traits that you can add to your kit. So without further ado, let's go into the recap of this episode. And afterwards, if you love it, like it, share it, follow it, give us some feedback because we're only just getting started. What is up? On this episode of the Non-Standard Podcast, I am joined by an amazing friend, retired Colonel David Benson. He was previously the Dyess Air Force Base Wing Commander, which is where I got to see him a little bit when I was new to Dyess. I didn't have a lot of interaction being a young officer, but hearing his career, his experiences, what he learned along the way, how it helped him develop was amazing. And I know everybody is going to learn something from this episode. So without further ado, I won't keep you guys here any longer. Again, he served 25 years in the Air Force, worked his way all the way up to Colonel, had amazing staff jobs, a lot of great opportunities, and talks about family, faith, and then being there for your country. So without that, let's get the show on the road. And if you like anything, all I ask for you to do is save, share, like, or follow. Reach out to me on Instagram, Manny Mustache. I'll leave retired Colonel Benson's LinkedIn info if you guys want to reach out to him. But less than a minute, let's go. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Non-Standard Podcast. I'm your host, Manny Lampson, and I'm joined today with a great mentor and leader. I still say Colonel Benson. I tell everybody that right now. That's what I tell the Quattro too.
It's been David for 7 years, man. David for 7 years.
But just like you guys heard in the intro, with his background and what he brings to the table, I'm very excited. And without further ado, we'll get into the 3 H's. Sir, just like you saw in the intro, hometown, heroes, and hardship. And I'll open it up to you.
Okay. So I am a Air Force brat, believe it or not. My dad and actually my mom was in the Air Force too. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Moved around quite a bit. Spent my younger years in the Philippines at Scott. Ended up in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, which is where my parents would get divorced. It was not a good divorce, I'll put it that way, which will lead to one of my heroes later on. So I ended up in Ocean Springs, Mississippi for most of my teenage years, and I graduated from high school there. So a small town in Mississippi. You ever been down to Keesler? You're about a town over. East of that is a town called Ocean Springs, which is a good little town. Yep. Heroes is next, right?
Yes, sir.
So,
yep.
Heroes. I'll start. So my heroes are kind of different. I listened to your podcast last week. Mine are a little different. I'll start with the one I talked about. My first one is my mom. So when we got divorced, my parents got divorced. It was a pretty ugly divorce. Basically, my dad threw my mom out with nothing. But my sister and I wanted to live with my mom occasionally, and we were young enough where we didn't know the difference. So my mom would get she got a little rental apartment somewhere. It was a 1-bedroom studio. And I look back on it now, and 3 meals a day. Back then, I didn't really care what they were, but they were grape nuts and milk because that's all my mom could afford. So when we would go visit her, we would eat grape nuts and milk. She didn't have a TV, but we always had fun. And she always had a positive attitude about things. My mom would go into the Air Force. She'd marry my stepfather, who they've been married for 40 years now. He's a great, great man. But we never really had a lot growing up, and my mom always made the best out of it, which is one of the traits I love about people, is making the best about who they are and what they do. And those are really, really the heroes I look up to. So my mom is one. That's pretty normal. The other one's kind of an odd one. And I don't know why, but my wing commander leadership tour there is one airman that kind of sticks out to me. He was a New York City kid. I don't think he finished. He probably got a GED, I would bet, Manny. I never asked him that. Never drove till he got into the Air Force. But you know where they stuck him? They stuck him in the transportation squadron. So yeah, as luck would have it, he's in the transportation squadron. And I'll talk to one of my leadership traits later about this, but I always got out and about. I hate sitting behind a desk. So I would go out and about. And if I didn't go if I had not been in a door yet on a building on base, I would open the door and walk in. So in the transportation squadron, I open a door and walk in, and I see this airman. He's working on a truck. Well, he and I, no kidding, over the 2 years I were there, would meet each other occasionally, just seeing him around. And it would get to the point to where he was a truck driver for the base. And one day he's like, "Hey, Colonel, I'd love to teach you how to drive a truck, dude." So I, no kidding, met this kid. He was probably 19. Probably only had his driver's license for a year, and he was teaching me how to drive a truck. And this kid was so excited and so happy. And he was using the gifts God had given him to do things. And he was just happy and excited about it. You know what I mean? I don't know why, but that guy always sticks in my mind. Whenever I have a bad day, I sit there and think, this guy grew up in New York City. He could be a statistic right now. But yet he had the wherewithal to join the Air Force and make something of himself and be happy about it. I don't know where this kid is now. I hope he's a master sergeant somewhere. I wish I remembered his name, but that guy is definitely a hero of mine. Just from how he handled himself.
Yeah, I think it's always cool to see, like for you, meeting him was maybe one in, 100 or maybe 200 people, but for him to meet you was one of one, maybe one colonel he only got to meet. And so I don't know how nervous I would be to ask a colonel to go drive a truck with me as an airman when I just learned to drive. But it makes me think of the appreciation they have for their job. When you get an airman like that, that's excited, to just do something, I say simple in the grand scheme of what Dias brings to the military. But for them, like that's their job. That's his bread and butter. That's what he's good at, and for him to have the confidence and proud, be proud for you to want to come and for him to show you that, he may be, there's probably airmen around him. I guarantee that we're like, oh, he's not going to want to do that. He probably rides in cars all the time, and for him to just not listen to them and want to take that challenge, man, that's pretty cool.
He didn't care. All he cared about was how proud he was in his job.
Yeah.
And how he wanted to share that. He wanted to share his pride, which was phenomenal. I loved. We didn't go very far. We went around a couple blocks, but I will always remember that drive, man.
That's cool.
Pretty amazing. Yep. And then I thought of three of them. Of course, we work in threes in the military. My third one is a guy you may know. He's still there at Dias. His name's Gordon Story. Back when there were suicides were increasing at Dias, this is probably back in the 90s. There was a wing commander, and at the time, Gordon was the equal opportunity master sergeant. He would retire out of that job. And the guy goes, how are we going to solve this issue? Let's get a volunteer organization for our airmen, available for our airmen. So we started this thing called the Dias We Care Team.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, it's now 24 years later. He retired a long time ago. He does it out of his heart. He gets nothing out of it. But this guy, no kidding, saves lives. The feeling you get from volunteering, the getting out of your room, the social interaction that we don't have anymore. It's just phenomenal what this organization can do. And you see it, man. I mean, this is how you operate too. You're a very personable person. You know that personal connection means a lot to people, and you got to make it. That's who we are as humans. He believes so much in this thing that he does it almost full time for nothing. Now he has a job on the side where he helps underprivileged kids. Heart of gold, right? But for years, ever since I left, he hasn't done a lot of help from the leadership there at Dias.
Yeah.
But yet he keeps going and going and going and going on because he believes in the airmen and helping them out, and that if he saves one airman, it's well worth his effort.
Yeah, I've met so many airmen that have come to me and that have worked with him, and just they have grown so much. I have an airman Schroll. He is one of his main guys, and he's with him all the time right now working. There's a TAC PO I know. He's from here. He mentions him a couple times. Sergeant Gonzo, another guy I've had on my podcast, has worked with him. Every airman I know that has worked for him has excelled. Like they have learned, they have grown. And I need to get out there, and I see him all the time. And so I think we've worked with same airmen. Our names have been brought up in conversations, but I usually try to support them when I can when they do car washes or those little events to help give back. But yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's a guy, and these are kind of my heroes. My heroes aren't the superheroes; they're the guys behind the scenes that just give of themselves, or because they can, and they like doing things for other people. Even the truck driving airman, he was just doing it because he wanted to show me how to drive a truck. I mean, he wanted to see the colonel drive a truck, man. And I just love people like that, kind of like my mom. She made something out of nothing and was happy about it, and knew the importance of it, and made it happen. So it was good. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
What you got for the hardship?
Hardship. So hardship number one was, and you might feel this one. So it's, so I was number one back in the day, out of my squadron. I was a number one weapons school grad, number one, ranked out of my squadron, and I did not get promoted below the zone. So somebody below me did, and it threw me for a loop. And back in the day, it's very competitive. You've been there. Yeah. It's very competitive for promotion and all that stuff. And I took it pretty hard. But over time, thinking back about it, obviously I ended up getting promoted anyway. It made me realize that there's a reason for everything. You know what I mean? One of my buddies was the one that got promoted above me. And my wife was like, dude, it's kind of like the truck driver, dude. You have certain circumstances you are dealt with. Get over it. Be happy who you are in the circumstances you're in. And it's the old adage, grow where you're planted. There's a reason you're here, man. Be happy about it, find it, and do it. And that was it kind of really brought to me a sense of peace and a sense of self-worth, because I knew that underneath it all, the promotion was just an external gratification for myself. And really, it's the man inside that matters. And it's the man inside that should matter to me, and it should matter to you. So it was a turning point in my philosophy of myself, in all honesty. Ever since then, I don't look at other people and their successes as a measure to myself, because it's all different. And I have an inner peace about who I am. And because of that, I don't judge myself by others. So very rarely, where other people might get mad because other people get promotions now, it doesn't really bother me. Where other people might get like recognized for certain things, don't really care if I'm recognized for things. And it really kind of grew me into the leader that I became. And I think it grew me into a better leader, in all honesty. So that was a huge learning point in me, that one right there. And it kind of goes on to my second one, which is retiring. So you retire as the big dog on the base, it's a lot of stuff, You go from that to where you are a peon nobody at Delta Airlines. By the way, now I forgot to tell you my history. I'm a Delta Airlines pilot now. I'm not a peon anymore at Delta. So, but you're a peon and you're like, what just happened to my life? What do I do? I was helping so many people back then. What do I do now? And again, it kind of made me self-reflect on, so what is your purpose in life? What did God put you on this earth to do? He gave you this opportunity. It's not the door closing, it's a door opening, right? So you have this opportunity. What does it mean to you? And it really opened up my volunteer side of me, which I now do now. I volunteer at a local food bank quite a bit. I'm on the board of directors there. And we feed about 700 families a week. And it's something I really enjoy. It's a passion of mine now, is volunteering and helping others in that way. So, again, when you reach adversity, it's a time for you to learn, self-reflect, and figure things out. And at first, this new life was hard. I'm not going to lie to you, man. It was hard, man. Retiring and being something different is not easy. It's a life I knew for 25 years. I changed course because my family asked me to, and instead of having animosity toward my family, I'm like, well, I got to figure this out and figure out why. God spoke to my family and had me change course. And it's actually been an incredible blessing where I am now. So spend more time with my kids. I help out with the people in need here in Newnan, Georgia, which you don't think there would be any, but there's a lot out there that are hurting and in need, and it's really been an incredible blessing for you. So that's my couple of hardships that I think have really helped me self-reflect and learn about myself.
Yeah, I'll touch on a couple of them that I wrote down for my notes.
Yeah.
Man, we're 13 minutes in, and if you guys don't write down "grow where you are planted," I will be upset. That's phenomenal, sir. Like, those that have been listening, with my failure, I call it a failure not getting selected for TAC-PO,
Yeah.
but you hit it right there. There's a reason for everything. I called my wife right after that at 8 p.m., bawling my eyes out when I didn't get selected.
Yeah.
Because I was like 100% knowing I was going to get selected from everybody I talked to going into the selection, what I put out in myself, and not like, I just remember standing in front of that colonel, and when he said not selected, I was like, I don't know, like this can't be happening. Like, I walked outside and the site doc's there. She's like, you want to talk about it? I was like, nope, I don't know what's happened. Went back to the tent, and even all the people there, my class were just like, they didn't ask me because I think we all assumed I was going to get selected. And so I just sat down, went outside and bawled.
Oh, man.
The first thing she told me was, God has a reason for everything. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's a good woman, dude. You need to stick with her. That's a good woman.
Yep. And then like what you said, grow where you're planted, then that's where my mind shifted. I didn't dwell on it for a long time, which it's, I think about selection every day because there's always something in my life that brings me back to that week, waking up early or going through hard situations, but it shifted my mentality of what now, now it's time to recage, I'm at DIA still. I still have great airmen and flyers and officers I can lead. I can motivate. There's tons of airmen here I can still motivate and lead.
Yep.
And so like that was huge. Like grow where you're planted.
Yeah. The funny thing is the first hardship, the guy that got promoted before me was a good friend of mine. And he would end up to be the wing commander at Minot. So my wife is a Southern girl at heart. So if I would have got promoted, I probably would have been wing commander at Minot. And no telling how poorly that would have ended. So, it all works out for a reason. So hindsight being 2020, it worked out exactly as it should have.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you just got to have faith, which obviously your wife has a ton of faith, man, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've learned over the past is, like God has a reason for everything we do. Like He's the only one that knows where we're going to go and what's going to come up.
That's it.
We can try to control it, but we can't.
That's when you get frustrated. You try to control it. You're like, exactly. Well, I'll just go where I'm planning. I'll do what I'm supposed to do.
I like how you talked about just when you had that hardship and you started focusing on just you, like you can't control. And there's a huge saying, a lot of us probably understand is control what you control. And that's where I learned that philosophy as well when it came to, hey, people are going to get promoted. People are going to win things. You either use it, as a motivation or a fuel to do better or work harder, learn, but you can't let it bring you down.
That's exactly right.
And the military is tough like that when that's what we, rely on. What airmen are looked at as awards or promotions. And so it's very tough to focus on you when everyone around you is focused on everyone around you.
Yep.
And your rankings and all that.
Yeah. And I think it just leads back to my one of the earlier points, which is if you believe in yourself, then the fact you don't get something that you think you wanted is okay. Because you're still a good person. You're still doing great things. You're still here for a reason. And that really takes away a lot of that stress and strain.
Yeah. One of the questions I'll ask, and I might know the answer, but what was your reason for joining the military? It's always a good question for people to listen in here, but sounds like I might know the answer, but.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. So, I'll go back to my mom. So my mom, not well off. We're living with her. So she joins the Air Force. So she's no kidding, a 30-year-old airman basic. She marries a senior master sergeant, actually. They're in the band. Senior master sergeant, my stepdad now for 42 years less, great guy. He retires. So he's a retired senior master sergeant. My mom gets out after five years as a staff sergeant, I think. She gets out at. So we don't have a lot of money, Manny, is the bottom line to all this. All right, man. My parents are musicians. They play nights. I have to work at Wendy's to buy a car and pay for gas in high school. And I didn't want to work through college. So somebody at my school, I forgot who it was, said, "Hey, why don't you go to the Air Force Academy? It's free." I'm like, "Well, that's a great idea. Let's go to the Air Force Academy." Which it absolutely is not free. It is blood, sweat, and tears that you would not want. I look back not with a lot of fond memories of the place, but it was free, and that's why I joined the military. I actually had a pretty good scholarship to Georgia Tech, but it didn't pay for everything. I didn't want to work while I went to school. So yeah, that's why I did it, brother. There you go. That's my story.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let's jump into, a summed up career. You joined.
Yeah.
Walk us through, because for you, I haven't had a lot of officer flyers on, so it'd be good for some of those to hear, what that career is like, what that transition's like. And then I'll have some follow-on questions with the leadership development throughout your career as well. Or if you want to throw them in there, you can. So.
Okay, sounds good. So I started off, went to pilot training at Columbus Air Force Base. Out of that, got the B-1, which was great at the time, although it was overmanned. So I would spend 2.5 years at the B-1, not flying a heck of a lot.
Okay.
I think I maybe got 500 hours in my 2.5 years there. And when after 2.5 years, a lot of us that were there were offered up what was called the fighter crossbow at the time. I looked at my wife and I said, "Hey, let's go fly a fighter." And she's like, "Well, I'm not sure that's a lifestyle I want. But how about they're offering up white jets? Columbus Air Force Base is 4 hours from mom and dad. Let's go there." So we went to Columbus Air Force Base, where I was in a T-38 IP for 3 years, which gave us time to start our family. We had our first child there and gave us some time to really think about a career and what's the next move for us. So when I was there, somebody came by and gave a briefing on the B-2. And I was like, "Hey, that sounds like a pretty cool plane." Plus, it's got 38s on the side, T-38s on the side. So I went to it and I did it. By the way, all while doing this, had our first kid, had a couple kids at B-2 training. Went to B-2 training there at Whiteman Air Force Base. I was a middle of the road captain at that point in time. So kind of hard changing like that, but it was well worth it. Got there. And I think it was 2 or 3 years in, I was just became an IP, and they started the weapons school there. And kind of like sometimes you just need to jump in and take a risk. That was the risk. They're like, "Hey, we're looking for some students for the very first class. We're looking for some guinea pigs for the first B-2 weapons school class ever." And I was a senior captain. I don't know why heck I raised my hand, but I did. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life. My wife will disagree because I was gone a lot after that. But I went to the very first B-2 weapons school class where I was a student. Graduated there, would go back to be a weapons officer in the B-2. But I will tell you, what the weapons school taught me really was the mantra that you hear around: humble, approachable, credible, because and the joy of teaching is what the weapons school taught me, the joy of teaching. Ever since there, I love to teach. I teach now at Delta Airlines, believe it or not. I'm an instructor on the 737, so I teach there. And just the joy I get out of watching people learn. Didn't really teach before. Well, I was a 38 instructor, so I love that. But just the detail-oriented teaching that comes from the weapons school was pretty phenomenal. So I loved it. I would go on and do that for as a weapons officer, wing weapons officer after that, which is pretty much a standard career for an aviator if you go through weapons school. Work your way up to that. And then I went over to teach at the weapons school. Okay. And I had some great mentors along the way. So my commander at the weapons school was a guy named Van Herk, who just retired out of the Northcom commander position, a 4-star. My squadron commander, who I went to war with, was a guy named Boussier, who's the Global Strike Command commander. I flew T-38s with Armagast, who's the 8th Air Force commander.
Yeah. I have a good story. I actually got to fly when he was the commander. When I was in the DEED, we got to fly a sortie together.
Did you really? He's a great dude. Did you enjoy flying with him?
I got to fly with him, and we dropped some bombs together. And then he also recommended a book to me called The Perfect Pass, which I just finished reading. Because I guess he carries around like a book like a
He does.
backpack full of books wherever he goes.
He does, man. So we would sit. So quick armor story. We would sit. So I was squadron commander with him underneath Bussier at Whiteman, and he, no kidding, would read a book in staff meetings, and it would drive Bussier crazy. The rest of us were like, "What are you doing, Armo?" And he would read a book. I'm like, dude, really? That is the most read person I've ever met in my life. So if he recommends a book, I'm sure it's phenomenal for you. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we would get done. It's with weapons school instructor, and Van Herk would say, "Hey, here's the deal. You're gonna go to school. I recommend this place for you." And it was a national lab. So I went to a national, and again, it's nothing. I'm like, what are you talking about? Let's go to like an army school or something. He's like, no, you need to get out of the military. I'm sending you to a national lab. So you need to broaden your horizons. So I go to this national lab, and with all these PhDs, and I studied so I was a double E at the academy. I was number 26 out of 32, so I was not good at double E. But I go to this national lab and I study nuclear recycling, which was actually, I knew a little bit about for a year at a national lab. And I wrote a 117-page thesis on nuclear recycling. There's more to it than this. But anyway, again, this goes back to the old adage. When people offer you a door, sometimes you leap, man. Leap and go. Leap and go. And then grow where you're planted and make the best of it while you're there. Had a phenomenal time. It was in Chicago, so winter sucked. But the rest of the time, it was awesome. After that, he made it up to me by sending my family and I to Hawaii and Hickam, where I spent 2 years on the used to be PACOM staff. Now it's Indo-PACOM staff. And that was the aide to camp to the commander, a 4-star admiral named Keating. Keating was a phenomenal guy. And I'll tell you one of my lessons learned from him and his leadership style. So I'm the aide de camp to the commander at US PACOM. This guy owns half the globe. He seriously owns half the globe militarily for the U.S. military. The coast of California all the way over to India. I mean, I think it's like 49%, but it's close. So it's my first day on the job as the aide. You walk down the stairs, you greet the boss because he comes in his, armored Suburban. Security gets out. You salute sharply the truck. You grab the boss's bags and you start walking up because so the entry level was on the third floor. You walk up 2 levels to the 5th floor. That's where his office was. So I grab his bags. I'm following him. Day one, dude. This is day one. We're walking upstairs and he stops. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And he reaches down and he picks up a piece of trash on the stairs. And so I was told the day prior, by the way, when you walk down the stairs, make sure you pick up the trash in case there isn't any, because you don't want the 4-star pick up trash. So we get up to the office. I drop his bags off. I walk outside. I'm like, dude, I'm fired. It's day one. This guy owns half the club. He's picked up trash. So Manny, I would walk into his office and I'd be like, boss, I'm so sorry. I should have picked up that trash. And I will never forget his words, man. His words to me were this. He goes, look, anything I expect of the people below me, I expect of myself. Nothing is below me. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I've had the same experience just like that. So
yeah.
I worked for First Form on the side, supplement company, and I got to go up to their headquarters, and their CEO, Andy Frisella, he's that exact role model that you just mentioned. I remember sitting in an auditorium and watching him talk, and there's like 200 of us in there, and he's a CEO, like nothing, he could just do whatever he wants. And he stops and he pauses and he picks up this piece of garbage that was on the ground.
Yeah.
With his pocket. And I was just like, dang. And he always talks about the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, and I was like,
yeah,
he could have just walked over that, gave a speech and then left, but he picked, and I was just like, dang. So that's like, when you said that, that's what I thought about, was that right there.
That's it, brother. Pick up your trash, and I think it was awesome. And he taught me that leadership lesson is what I took with me for a lot of places. Nothing is below you. Nobody is below you. You know what I mean? Be nice to everybody and expect of yourself what you expect of others. So be an example in everything you do is exactly right. Live that example you want your people to be. And if you don't want to walk by trash, then pick up the trash when you walk by it, man. Yeah. I use that example all the time. it really stuck with me that he would do that. And Keating was a great guy. He's retired. He's now on a bunch of boards making millions of dollars. But so I did that with Keating. He hooked me up after that with a squadron commander. So I went back to be squadron commander of the weapons school at Whiteman, at the B-2 weapons school at Whiteman. I did that for 2 years. And then a guy named Andy Jabera, who you may know, he was a previous 8th Air Force commander. He's now 3-star somewhere. He was the vice wing commander. And he said, hey, I got a job for you. I need a deputy mission support group commander. You're that man. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm a pilot.
Yeah.
I can't even spell security forces. What are you talking about, man? So I had an odd career, man, is what I'm telling you here. So Andy goes, hey, you're going to do it. So I go over and do it. And I work for a phenomenal guy. What's Rick's last name? I'll think of it while I'm sitting here. But I learned so much about the rest of the base, security forces, FSS, CE, contracting. It was one of the best experiences of my life. Again, door opens, jump through, man, both feet. And I walked around and learned so much from these guys. Like I said, it was one of the best jobs I ever had, was the Deputy Mission Support Group Commander at Whiteman Air Force Base. Just loved it, learned so much. It really gave me a huge respect for those people that are behind the scenes, that don't get a lot of accolades. I mean, in the Air Force, it's us, it's me and you. We're the warriors. We're the fighters for the most part, So we get the accolades. We get to go risk our lives and come back, and we're the heroes. But there are a lot of people behind the scenes that make that what it is. And it gave me a huge appreciation for them. So that was a great tour for me. So I was a Deputy Mission Support Group Commander there. From there, I went on to school. Again, Ben Herc, who was my mentor most of the time, called me up and goes, hey, have I got a job for you? Your school is going to be Navy school. I'm like, what? What about an Air Force school? Can I make this easy for me? And so I go to Navy War College in Rhode Island, which is a phenomenal place. You're a good chance. I highly recommend it. We're able to get a master's. I had a master's in business, by the way. Now I'm getting a master's in international relations. Yeah, it was great because the Navy school, the job of the Navy War College is to provide you the opportunity to interact with a bunch of other agencies or countries. So my class was filled with an Indonesian, an African country. I think it was Nigeria, European, French, CIA, FBI, State Department. We had corporate people there, and you got to interact with these people, which was phenomenal, and get their perspective on things. Because the military perspective is, it only gives you one side of the story, and it gave me a great perspective on why we do things the way we do at a higher level, at the national level for the most part. So I appreciate that opportunity to do that. So I went off to school there, had a great time with my family, and then moved to the Pentagon for my Penance Joint Staff Tour, where I worked for a 1-star Army officer who was phenomenal. And I worked what was called Global Force Management, where you allocate forces to the commanders. So did that for a year. And then I moved on to be the group commander of the B-2s at Whiteman Air Force Base, where I was there for a year and 15 months. I'm sorry, not a year and 15 months, 15 months total, a year and 3 months. So I go on to be my dream job, the group commander at the B-2s, which is pretty awesome. It was a great time. And I get there and I get settled. And after your first year is usually where you're getting yourself settled, you're figuring stuff out. And the second year is where you want to kick some butt because you have some ideas what you want to do. And Bussier, was it Bussier or was it Clark? It was either Bussier or Clark. I think it was, may have been Clark. Yeah, I think it was General Clark, who Harpo Clark, B-1 guy, came to me and said, hey, I got some good news and bad news. I'm like, yes, General, what can I do for you? He goes, the good news is the wing commander at Dias is retiring quickly because he's running for Congress.
Oh, Star. It was a Star.
Star,
Yeah.
yes. So Star retires. And the bad news is it's you. You're taking over. And you got to be there in 30 days.
Oh
I'm
my,
like,
what?
what? 30 days? I got to move my family, blah, blah, blah. So my family stays behind. They finish their semester.
Yeah.
And then they come join me. Um, at that. And it was a whirlwind tour. It's pretty crazy. Again, when, door opens, you jump through it and do the best you can, man. Um, Loved it. Loved. Best job ever. Highly recommended. Um, and one of the things I learned from that was really get out and meet your people. When I first got there, I don't know why, but the secretary there was like, "Hey, every afternoon I'm going to schedule you out of office time." And I'm like, "Out of office time? What the heck are you talking about? You don't want to sit behind that desk all day." I'm like, "Well, that's very true. I don't want to sit behind the desk all day. So it's okay. Out of office time it is." And so I would go meet people. And this is where I met the trucking guy. And I will tell you, so one of my leadership traits, I'll talk about it right now.
Yeah.
Get out from behind your desk, man. You cannot lead from behind a desk because you need to get to know your people. I learned so much more talking to people behind the scenes than I ever got out of group staff meetings. I learned so much more walking through a door and talking to a two-striper than I ever did walking through a door talking to an 06. Because they tell you what's really going on. And I learned to love my afternoons. Yeah, so that's one of the things I highly recommend is get out and meet your people. And when you do that, they know, because you've been there. You know the wing commander's name, but you never met him. You have no idea who that guy is, right?
Or you do like a quick immersion that you have to plan for your office, and they come through that one time, and then you
Yeah,
never see them again.
you never see him again. So you're like, what is this? Who is this guy? And so now they know who I am. They know that, hey, I got 4 kids, and I know they have 3 kids, and there's kids, I'm still friends with a lot of those people on Facebook that I met during that time that I never would have met if I've not wouldn't have got out from my desk. So I absolutely cherished that time, and I loved it. A couple other things I learned during actually group command is where I learned this next one. The next one leadership trait is this, and you kind of hint to it on yours, Manny. Take time for yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, being selfless, you got to be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you. So I just talked to my son the other day. He's a civil engineering junior at Georgia, and he wants to go build houses for the less fortunate. And he wants to go work for a company, a nonprofit. I'm like, well, hey, Jacob, that's great. But here's the deal. If you can't take care of yourself, how can you expect to emotionally and physically be able to take care of others? So I'm like, hey, I recommend you maybe go work corporate for a few years, get your feet underneath you, get financially established, and then you can go do that stuff. Because he would be great at it. But the point is this. If you are not physically capable of taking care of yourself, you're not going to be physically taking care of anybody else. So definitely get the workouts in. I worked out at 5 a.m. every day, and it was my time. I didn't change that for anybody. Other thing I didn't do is I went home for lunch every day at 12.
Yes.
And I would tell you that, and I would take my boots off, put my feet up, and have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But I would tell you I solved more issues during my gym time on the treadmill or the stair stepper, you know what I mean? Or lifting weights. I solved well more issues doing that and with my feet off at home than I ever did sitting behind my office and my desk. So definitely take time for yourself and your family, because if you're worried about those things, you can't take care of the people around you, man. So I love the fact you have that on your list of things to do.
Yeah, I don't know how many chair flights I've done running for hours or scheduling things I've done when I'm on a ruck for a couple hours. People don't realize that time is gold. Like, I will, with my habits, working out every morning, just like you said. Now I'm getting back into flying. I'm thinking of my mission brief. Okay, how am I going to do that during my? I'm saying that during my workout. How am I going to plan the mission? What's my schedule going to be like? I plan my day when I wake up in the morning when I'm at the gym. I have a meeting here today. Oh, it's with this person. What do I expect? How do I expect it to go? I'll run through some scenarios in my head, so I'm not caught off guard.
Yes.
It's freeing. It's people. Oh,
It
Yes.
absolutely is, man. And I think and the other part to that is this, those are times when I don't have a phone around me for the most part,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Or a computer in my face.
Mhm.
And that's the other part I'll recommend is, dude, turn the stuff off. When I went home at the end of the day, so backing up, I had a great commander one time who told me, hey, your people will emulate what you do.
Oh
So if you want your people in at 6 a.m., then show up at 6 a.m.
man.
If
Mhm.
you want your people in till 8 o'clock at night, working their tails off, burning themselves out, then stay to work at 6 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
And so with that, I always tried to come into the office no earlier than 7, and I always left at 5:30, man. Always. Unless I was flying or something else.
Yeah.
Because it shows the example to your people that family means something. And you're not just lip servicing in the, hey, go take care of your family.
Yeah.
This is just a job. God, family, country. You let you live that God, family, country.
Yeah.
So I always kind of do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a thing I do with my schedule. I do a lot of time blocking, and people
Yeah.
will they question it, when I tell them like, hey, I specifically have time during my day when I read, right? Like, it's not like I'll just read when I don't have time because that'll never happen. Like when you say you're going to work out in the afternoon, right? You're never going to work
Yep.
out in the afternoon. Um,
Yes.
and
Never.
so I have on my schedule on my Outlook the flying peck schedule, like when I'm going to the gym.
Yep.
And then on my personal like planner, I have the first 30 minutes a day are just emails. Like that's it. After that 30 minutes, if there's emails, I need to shift to something else because I'm thinking of something else. So it'll be like read, just do something to like not think about it. Or maybe it's social media, like because everybody's thinking of these stuff and you're not focusing on one thing. And so I try to give myself time to focus on those things I may be thinking about, so I'm not thinking about them later. And so it
Yeah.
helps me really recage, So when I wake up, I check my phone right away. The only reason I do that is because if I read right away, I'm thinking about what notifications I have on my social media. So I'm not even focused on reading. So I'm just like, dude, let me just clear all my notifications.
Yep.
Get that what I'm subconsciously thinking about out of my mind. So when I'm reading,
Yep.
I'm taking it all in. Like I'm gathering all that info, and it's only like 10, 15 minutes. Because if I read any longer than 15 minutes, my mind starts wandering. What am I doing for my workout?
Because
Like
you're so
what
busy.
am I
Yeah.
prepping for food? So stop. And that's how work is. Like when I go to the vault study, I
Yep.
tell people now I don't study for like 3 or 4 hours because I just had a conversation with someone about this. The point of diminished return. I just heard about this, and it's huge, and it can be in time or money or finances or whatever.
Yeah.
You can have all the time in the world to do something, but there's gonna be a point where you're not getting the most out of it.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to a young guy going through MQT just a couple days ago. I was like, hey man, I see you're in the vault studying. What's your plan? Oh, I'm just gonna sit back here, study for a couple hours. I was like, hey man, like why don't you just study for just 30 minutes, just like all out? Because if you say you're gonna study for 2 hours or 3 hours, after like an hour, you may not like get that next hour efficient, right? It may just be you just zoning out. That's that diminished return where you need to take that time you have most productive and capitalize. So I do that now. Like I'll go to the vault 30 minutes, just 30. I'll read
Yep.
something from TO, maybe read the 3-3, mission guide, then I'll stop, go check my email, and then come back and a little more recage. And I found these smaller sections of studying or focus or whatever. It could be eating, reading. It allows me just to soak it in a little bit more efficient.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. And another point to all that is sometimes people. So my youngest kid, he's a perfectionist, and we've had this discussion a while. And this is what the weapons school taught me: this, you never have enough time in the day. So sometimes trying to get the 100% solution is the enemy of the 80% solution, right? So sometimes the 80% solution is good enough. Run with it, because if you waste your time to get the 100% solution, you have 10 other things that have 0% of your effort. So when you have a full schedule, don't let the 100% be the enemy of the 80%.
Yeah,
Really,
I talked about it in a couple of my podcasts. My best GPA in college was when I was slammed busy with no breaks whatsoever. Like I was doing football, ROTC, working a part-time job,
yeah,
trying to have family time, lab. But then my worst GPA was the year I wasn't doing football.
yeah,
They're like, but you had so much time to study. I'm like, but when I have the time, I'm not going to, we don't use the time when we're given it,
no,
but if you only have that time and that's it, you will make the best out of it.
you will.
And that's why I think some airmen struggle when it comes to leadership progression, because in some jobs, they're given a lot of time to do like simple tasks. They just, they're just laying it out. So sometimes as a supervisor or something for those listening, if you want better for your airmen, give them short time limits, set it, even though they may have 3 hours, give them an hour. Make them work that 1 hour. If they don't get it, they learn. Because if you give them 3 hours, they're going to take 3 hours.
They are. Challenge them.
Yeah.
Give them multiple tasks that or they can't get done, and then see what they do with it. See if they prioritize appropriately. And hey, I couldn't do them all, so here's what I got for you. You know what I mean? And see what they can do to help. Absolutely challenge them, man. Absolutely challenge them.
So I do have another question. It was, when did you start to solidify and develop these leadership traits and philosophies throughout your career? It sounded like you got a couple during weapons school you learned.
Yeah.
And then obviously when you were working for other people, but for those younger, it's hard, to understand that we're all leaders, but when did it all click?
It really kind of clicked under squadron command. And I'll tell you when it really kind of clicked to me is, so I'm sitting there, and you remember you've had these briefs before where you come into your DO or squadron commander's office and they say, hey, Manny, here's the plan I have for you. You're here and it's 2024. You're here in your career. Next step is this. Next step is this. Okay. So I'm a squadron commander at the weapons school. I'm brand new. I'm doing this with my guys. And I get done, spectacular brief. I'm patting myself on the back. I'm like, this guy's going to love me. I gave him a great, and my weapons school instructor looks at me and goes, hey, boss, that's all fine and dandy, but I'm getting out in 2 years to be a lawyer. And I'm like, what? Crap. It totally shot my entire leadership philosophy in the foot. So I sat back, man. I'm like, what the heck? That sucked. I totally just wasted his time and, wasted my time. And made me sit back and look and go, hey, what am I doing wrong here? And it made me realize that leadership is personal. We all have different goals. We all have different priorities. We all have different visions. And while you're the boss and you have the big strategic idea of where this is going, leadership is personal. And so after that, I totally changed my philosophy. And instead of when I meet with the person the first time, sitting there going, here's where you're going for your career. My first time ever meet with somebody, you know what I do? I ask them about them. And I'm talking like, hey, where'd you meet your wife? What's her name? Where'd you go to school? Oh, I love Texas. That's a great school. How many kids do you have? Where do they live? Are they married? When's your anniversary? When's your birthday? What do you like to do on the side? Everything. And I'd write it all down, and we wouldn't talk work at all the very first meeting. Because I wanted to lead them personally to where they wanted to go. Let me give you an example. So this guy, Justin Boldeno. So Vapor's the OG. I'm the wing commander there. And Vapor loves his family, as you well know. I'm sorry, Faker. Baker loves his family. So he's sitting there in his office one day. I'm like, hey, doesn't Jess have it's like 12 o'clock. I'm like, doesn't Jess have a state championship soccer game today? Because we would talk about this stuff. And Kim is good friends. And he's like, yeah. I go, why are you in your office? He goes, because it's 12 o'clock on a Tuesday. I'm like, dude, I'm going with you. Let's go. And we go to his kids' championship soccer game or whatever it was. That's what you do. That's where his mind was. Why not go there with him? You know what I mean? Especially in the military, you're going to get your blood, sweat, and tears out of people. But if you let them and show them that you care about what they care about, they will walk through fire for you. Not really for me, but for the country. They will walk through fire for the country. Same thing happened with Mike Miller. His daughter was a golfer. She was golfing in a state championship. And I went to his daughter's golf tournament on I think it was like a Wednesday or Thursday. It doesn't really matter. But the point being is this. Know your people, who they are, what makes them tick, what matters to them, and that now matters to you. Don't confine yourself by the restraints that we all have. Yeah, working 9 to 5. Okay, I got that. But if he's got, if you got a podcast you do on Tuesdays from 2 to 3 and it's important to you, Manny, I guarantee they're going to get their extra hour out of you somewhere, man. You know what I mean? And it's important to people. So, go ahead.
Yeah, and a couple things that popped in my head is I'm huge on, well, now I am. Obviously, I had to go through the years where I didn't do it as much, but, if you have the time, take it. Because the military is never going to give you the time to take. It's going to
Never.
take it when it needs it. And so you have to take it when you see it. And
Yep.
I learned that going, like we talked about before, when I was in the USS and I had the time, I took it.
Yep.
I was like, I'm focusing on myself. I'm picking up my kids from school every day. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Because the reason I took that time during the OSS, because I knew coming back to flying, the military, it's going to take it back.
It's going to take it back.
I need to be fully charged for it. I need to give
Yep.
the best to it when I can. I can't, if the military asks me to go fly a mission, within a certain amount of hours, I can't be like, oh, I'm exhausted or, I'm burnt. Like I got to be like, I had my, I went, yesterday I went home early to pick up my kids. Cool. Got it. I'm ready.
Yep.
Or I was able to record the podcast. I'm not holding a grudge or whatever. Like, let's go.
That's exactly right. And you will be you're a better officer and you're a better leader because of it. You know what I mean? Because if you let your people take care of themselves, they can take care of their people and so on and so forth. So it's all personal. So from that, I would always send a handwritten letter on birthdays, handwritten letter on anniversaries. I would walk over and kick them out of the office early on anniversaries. Because it's important. There are 24 hours in the day and your job will make you work 25.
Exactly.
If you let it. So don't let it. Take control of your life and don't let it do it, man. Nice. So those good.
Yeah, I was just going to recap for those listening, and once you know the leadership philosophies that we talk about on here that have listened in the past, we've already hit all of them that I prioritize, which is lead by example in all you do. To be selfless, you have to be selfish. Build relationships based off trust and care, and then challenge right in front of you, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. You already hit all of them, which is phenomenal. That's why sometimes, like I was telling you before, like we just let it go. We talk and we covered leadership traits, and then I got my 2 pages notes. Let's see. I do have one more question. I'll ask.
Those are your leadership traits. I can't believe it. So we kind of coincide, buddy.
That's what I'm saying.
That's awesome. All right.
One question I'll ask you is, for those that are young, what tip do you have for them to start their leadership journey or develop these tools? What are some easy things they can do, and what are some things they can work on that you would look for as a leader or supervisor in them?
Yeah, absolutely. So try to solve issues. So a lot of times when you first start out when you're young, you bring issues to your boss. Yep. Try to come with solutions. Hey, I recommend this. That will start you thinking on where you're like your boss, in all honesty, right? Yep. So if you see a problem, and there's problems everywhere, come with a possible solution. Okay.
Huge.
Speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up at meetings. I love the people that would speak up. Even if they challenged my thinking, I was okay with that. Now there's a point in time in the military where the boss may say, I got it, brother. I hear what you're saying, but we're moving this other direction. You know what I'm saying? Time to salute sharply at that point in time. But I love the fact, in fact, my number one squadron commander when I was at Whiteman or Dias, when I was at Dias, was the one that spoke up the most to me. Because he helped me solve a lot of issues. But he also knew when the boss said, hey, enough is enough, he started marching in the right direction with that. So speak up, and help the boss find solutions. If there's an opportunity out there to lead something, even if it's something small, you and somebody else, be comfortable getting uncomfortable and take that opportunity. You may fail miserably, and you probably will. Failure is how you grow, man. I'm number 20. I was 26 out of 32 double E's out of the academy. I was terrible. I can't tell you how many times I hooked a ride at weapons school. You know what I mean? But I got back up and I tried again. And you're better for it. It's okay to fail. I think in today's world, leaders are afraid to fail. I hate to say that. Who was the? They were afraid. They're afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Who was the chief of staff when I was a wing commander? Great dude. I'll think of it. Viper guy on the joint staff. I'll think of his name, hopefully, before we're done. But so every year the wing commanders get together and they meet with him, and his marching orders are to us were this. If you see something on your base that needs fixing, don't wait for me. I don't care if it's against an AFI. Fix it. write it up in a memo, and do something different. So don't be afraid to go again. If it makes sense and it's the right thing to do, don't be afraid to make changes. Was his whole point to that, because we were, especially the military, so stuck in ruts. And sometimes you're afraid to go against legal. Legal's an advisor. Go against medical. Medical's an advisor. You're the commander. Make decisions that are best for your unit and march on. So as a young person, I would provide the boss that data and say, hey, a better way of doing business is this, and give them the opportunity to make that choice and make changes. Does that make sense?
Oh, all the sense in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
What book do you have for the masses?
Man, you know what? So no, I'm not. So I'm not Armagast. So I'm the opposite of Armagast. I'm a big Bible reader. So I hate to, Manny, I hate not to give you a book. There's so many leadership lessons learned. I read about some great people that are out there. If you want a leadership book, the one that really kind of changed my perspective, I read it as part of a leadership seminar at North Carolina. It's called The Outward Mindset. So if you have not read The Outward Mindset, it's getting to be pretty popular nowadays, what's in it. And it's really about, a lot of people make decisions based on their internal feelings and thoughts instead of looking from the other person's perspective. And it really kind of leads into don't speak quickly, listen, understand somebody else's side before you make a decision type of thing. But the outward mindset is one I always went back to. So during COVID, Delta, just like everybody else, slowed down quite a bit. I actually taught leadership on the side to a multinational security corporation, to their leaders. And I got a lot of stuff out of that book again, because it's so valuable having the perspective of somebody else. Because a lot of our decisions are emotional and they're based upon our feelings instead of thinking about somebody else's feelings, and an outward mindset for that. But besides that, I read a lot of the Bible, man. Every day I spend about 30 minutes to an hour in the Bible. I will tell you, there was one other thing I want to bring up today. And it's about, again, going back to one of my first ones here, which is have faith in who you are. And that's a huge leadership trait. If you have faith in who you are and you're a good person, that confidence you get from that faith is huge, because you will make the right decision. They may not always be perfect and you may make mistakes, but you'll always at least have confidence in yourself that at the time I made the best decision possible for my people. And that was, there's a poem out there from Mother Teresa. Anyway, it's called Anyway. I recommend you go read it. It's I kept it on my desk for all my leadership years. I'm gonna read it to you. I got it here, right here. Actually, I got my copy. My wife has it on her mirror nowadays. People are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. For you see, in the end, it was between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. So that was on my desk for every command tour I had. So I think it's a great leadership philosophy, but more it's a philosophy in knowing who you are and having faith in who you are. Yeah.
Oh man, the book I brought, Turn the Ship Around, and everything.
I've heard about that one. Any good?
Oh, I'm powering through it right now. So Chief Edwards, our OG chief, recommended it for a book reading club.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to read it for a while. And a lot of stuff we talked about is in that book. You talked about giving to those below them so they have the power to make decisions on what the people above them are thinking. So his biggest philosophy in that book is getting rid of the mindset of leader follower to leader leader. So very similar to the mission command structure of what the Air Force is trying to do now when we throw out buzzwords. Yep. But his was leader leader. He's trying to build leader leaders. And so the premise of his book is he takes command of this Navy submarine, changes up the whole leadership philosophy, and gives all the power, per se, to those at the lowest level to make decisions. And he basically says he's there doing nothing because everything is being done before it gets to him.
Yeah.
And it talks about having clarity in what you say, having competence in those below you, building trust, building relationships, everything we talked about.
Yep.
um,
That's pretty
but
awesome.
yeah,
And I'll tell you the secret to all that is having self-confidence. Because if you have self-confidence in who you are, and I'm not talking arrogance. Arrogance is something totally different. But if you have self-confidence in who you are and you're humble enough to know that, then you can allow your people to be them and to run. And that's what you see in the world. I see a lot of people that don't have the self-confidence to allow people to be themselves and do their own thing, and make their own decisions. And that's how you get the micromanagers of today.
yeah, basically, like, just to reiterate, you talk about, they'll emulate what you do. I say it all the time as a father, kids do what they see, not what they're told. I've learned a lot the past few years about that.
Your kids must be in great shape.
They're getting there. That's why they named our gym the Death Cave. So
The Death Cave. That's awesome.
and so whenever they mess up or we have a family workout, it's to the Death Cave. So
To the Death Cave you go. Let's go. That's I would love to have that when I was younger. That'd be cool.
Well, sir, we're getting right at that hour moment.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to add on at the end, or?
No, just appreciate all you do, Manny. I appreciate the opportunity today. For the people out there, just be confident in who you are. If you make things and do things based upon your principles and they're the right principles to have, then you'll be a great person and a great leader moving forward. So thanks for the opportunity, my friend.
Yes, sir. We'll just have you hang out for a little bit longer after.